Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Today's video is going to be my thoughts on why Leeds United won't suffer from second season syndrome. So, there's this trope in the Premier League era that a team will come up from the Championship and they'll do really well because it's the first time in the Premier League, or they haven't been in the Premier League in many years, and they get that excitement, that adrenaline rush that pushes them through every game, and it's exciting and it's new. When you get into your second season, that's gone, that newness of it. You're playing teams that you've played twice last season and in the cups and stuff like that, and you're sort of getting used to playing them. So that buzz of, oh, we're going away to Anfield, or we're going away to Old Trafford or Stamford Bridge, the list goes on, that isn't there as much. And so what becomes really difficult is to motivate the players enough to play that way. And we've seen it happen, this second season syndrome, with teams like Sheffield United. Now, one of the reasons I think Sheffield United had second season syndrome is because they came to the table with a very different style of playing, and they had overlapping centre-backs. Because they had three at the back, they allowed their two wide centre-backs to actually push on and overlap the midfielders and the attackers at times, with the full-backs maybe dropping in sometimes for them. This was new for their first season, and people didn't really know how to deal with it. They then got to grips with it in the second season, and it was like they got the stuffing knocked out of them because their original tactic wasn't working. They hadn't been particularly prudent in the transfer market, and they hadn't signed anyone that was really a proven goal scorer up front. Billy Sharp, very good Championship goal scorer, as we as Leeds fans know as well. But they signed Ryan Brewster for quite a large fee, and he wasn't proven in the Premier League. He'd played for Swansea in the Championship on loan, but he wasn't ever a world beater, and I think they knackered themselves by doing that. Now, that's just the most recent examples, but there has been examples before, like Burnley finished 7th one season, and then the next season had a big drop-off, the same with Wolves. The reason I don't think it's going to be the same for Leeds United is Marcelo Bielsa is not the same as those managers. And what's actually inspired me to create this video is a video that James Allcott did actually yesterday or today, where he spoke to a sports psychologist called Dan Abrahams. And what Dan Abrahams talked about in this video was that football is about feelings and about emotions, and no matter how professional you are, there is always feelings, there is always emotions. So, for example, you've just missed a tackle and they've gone through on goal. You want to make amends for that, so you might go flying into the next challenge. You might overthink what you're doing. The keeper might overthink his kick, or because he's made a bad one to start with. So it's about feelings and emotions. And what Dan Abrahams argued was that because Bielsa, his philosophy is so high intensity that Leeds don't really get time. The players don't really get time to process those emotions, other than perhaps Meslier. Now, we're going to have a little tangent here and talk about Meslier, but Meslier is different. Meslier is in goal, so he's not playing at 100 miles an hour all the time. And if he does make a mistake, he has got time to dwell on it. But he doesn't dwell on it. And one of the reasons for this, he argues himself, on the Square Ball podcast. Actually, it was the Phil Hay show, so the Square Ball lads and Phil Hay, this just gone Friday, they were talking about how Ilian Meslier gave an interview to Phil Hay for almost the first time since he's been in England, and he said his coach back at Lorient, when he was young, he used to make the goalkeepers go and box each other, and they would come out with bleeding eyes and bruising all over them, and they would go and kick the crap out of each other, basically. And that, and some other techniques that this coach employed, almost gave them, at a very young age, Meslier and his comrades, some sort of like mental resilience barrier. And it was very out of the box, very different way of thinking and of coaching these goalkeepers, but it seems to have a profound effect on Meslier because he just doesn't let it go to his head. Angus Kinnear described him as ice in the veins, and I don't think you can get much better than that. That's exactly what he has, and he doesn't let anything get to him. Next week, he's not thinking about that. He's on to the next, and his mistakes don't really dwell on him. So that's Meslier aside. The rest of the team, they are playing at 100 miles an hour all the time, and I think that does help massively. Dan Abrahams is right. Obviously, he's got a lot more experience in the field than I have, but I tend to agree with him, because when you are playing at 100 miles an hour, you're not sat there thinking, oh God, what have I just done? I've just made that mistake. The ball's coming at you straight away, and you're attacking again, and you're defending again, and you're attacking again. And I do think it actually has a real effect on the players. So that's reason one why I don't think we'll burn out, because of Bielsa's philosophy on intensity, allowing our players not to dwell on mistakes and errors. Part two of why I don't think Leeds will suffer from second season syndrome is because people like Sheffield United, like I've discussed, had a tactic that was very effective for them and really worked in their system. But Bielsa's tactic it's not just one thing, it's not one dimensional, it's mostly hard work, and you can't learn to outplay hard work. You have to raise your game to play hard work. So we've seen it all last season. You can see all the statistics. Almost every single team we played gave their biggest running stat of the season when playing against us, because that's how high intensity we are. And I don't think, like I say, you can just learn to play against hard work. You have to work hard to play against hard work. And it sounds silly, but it's not black and white, this is what they've done, we've learned how to play against them. Like, yes, we like to create overloads, but that's not like a profound philosophy. That's not like a world-changing scenario. A lot of teams like to create overloads, and a lot of teams in the Premier League, so teams are used to that, but whether you can deal with it at that pace is an entirely different story. I just think we've got too much in the locker to either go down or get a really low finish. So coming on to where we're actually going to finish this season, I think it's very similar to last season. I think, although I slightly contradict myself here, you do get that bounce of being back in the Premier League for the first time, so that gives you that extra bit. So we got 9th in the end, and some teams around us like Arsenal did have a really bad season even compared to their own seasons recently. But I think that feeling going does affect you a little bit, but Marcelo Bielsa won't see that in his mind. He will not think about that one bit. So I can see us getting a mid-table finish between 12th and 8th. I'm going to go for. I'm not going to go for an exact position, but I'm going to say between 12th and 8th. I feel like we might have a slight drop off, but that potentially we could actually get higher than we did last season and come 8th. So that is why I don't think we're going to suffer from second season syndrome. The one thing that I would like to mention is that obviously we've signed Junior Firpo, and if you've seen my last video, you'll see that I actually was at Blackburn away for his debut. So I have actually seen him play, and he looked very lively, very good, overlapping, getting into the box, very Alioski-like in his attacking. But he seemed a little bit shaky, but it was his first game in a long time. Anyway, he's our only signing first team wise, other than a second choice goalkeeper in Klaassen, who I think is actually very good and has potential to get even better. But I do feel we need a little bit of backup. Click seems to be continuing his rise from the end of last season, where he started playing well, because he scored against Villarreal in that 2-2 draw last night. And he seems to be on the rise again a little bit, but I don't know if we just need a little bit more backup. Koch, like I said in some of my previous videos, started to step up to the plate and play in that Calvin role quite well. But I just feel like we need one more midfielder who's a little bit of a, not ridiculously expensive, because I know that we have to be realistic, but a little bit of a marquee signing I think we need. So if that happens, then brilliant, and I think we'll get that 8th or 9th finish. If we don't sign anyone else, then we're maybe looking towards that 11th, 12th finish that I mentioned. So those are my sort of thoughts on this second season syndrome trope. And that's going to be it for this one. So I will see you next time, which might be the reaction to Scum away if I can't get a ticket, which highly unlikely. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.